Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well and you had a nice rest. And it's a bit chillier this morning than it was yesterday morning. So I think Ohio weather is finally here. If I could have a couple of our students from our education, Dr. Carrie Teeple's Education 373 class, they are helping all weekend with us, and we have a couple of them that are helping with door prizes this morning. So ladies.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Kendall.
And I'm Hannah.
And we're education majors here at the university. So the first door prize we're going to be giving away is Lucy and the String by Vanessa Roeder.
Okay, let's see. Will you make sure those don't fall for me? Thanks. All right. Dave Mallet. Not here? Okay, another one. Leah Moore. It was meant to be.
So then our second book that we have is Lowrider's Blast from the Past, illustrated by Raul III.
All right. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, wait, this is a student. Okay, sorry. Sorry, guys. Deborah Coleman. Yeah.
All right, our third book is A Perfect Day by Karen Berger. Yeah.
All right, the winner is Tess Hoverman.
All right, and our last one for right now is Rabbit and the Motorbike by Kate Hofler.
All right, and then Susan Thompson. Oh, okay. Good job, winners.
Thank you, ladies. If I could have I could have Dr. Carrie Teeple and all of her students stand this morning. We also have the students coming in right now, our Bowling Green State University students. And their faculty member. And then we also have, are the Cedarville students here yet? Cedarville, could you stand? We have 4 students from Cedarville. So last Sunday, we had our Fun Day Sunday. It's the first one of the year. And on Saturday, I received a text from an individual said, could you give a dear friend of mine a tour tomorrow? Or tonight? And I said, sure. Well, here it was the dean of the College of Education from Cedarville University. He was in town visiting and brought his family on Sunday to Fun Day Sunday, had never been here before, and it's just amazing how doors get opened, and as a result of that, the collaborations that will continue, and 4 of his students are here with us this morning. So we appreciate you making the drive. This conference would, of course, not be possible without the Mazza Museum staff. You've met many of them. I don't know how many of them are here with me this morning. I know Ken McIntyre, who you met last night, is in the back there. We also have Tracy Hummer, our administrative assistant, Dan Chazinski, our curator, and then Heather Sensel, our education manager. This team really is very special. It's a family, and the amazing things that get done with us, with the help of all of the volunteers in this room, it's a very special place, and I thank all of you for being a part of that. So all of you that are volunteers, please stand to the Mazza Museum. So all of you that were seated, there's opportunities for you to be standing next conference, okay? And Heather will talk about that this afternoon. So at this time, I would like Ken to come. He's got a few words to say. He will later, how many of you were here this summer at the summer conference? Ken, his previous job was the director of the YMCA. So he will be leading us this morning in exercise in between our second and third speaker, but not yet. He's going to share a few words this morning.
Good morning, all. Welcome to Saturday morning of Fall Conference 2022. This is very exciting. We're getting ready to kick off, 5 illustrators today. All kind of great things will be shared and received, and very excited about that. But before any of that happens, I think it's a travesty to go to a conference with all these wonderful people around here and not get to meet somebody new. So everybody look around real quick. Look around real quick and introduce yourself to somebody that you do not know. Shake hands. Where are you from? A lot of students. Has everybody met at least one new person now? One new person? Everyone? All right. Beautiful. Well, I'm not sure everybody's coming back from that. That's pretty good. Right. This is a social group. I should know that. So let me just welcome you one more time on behalf of the University of Findlay and the museum. It's good to have you here. This is a very exciting opportunity. Thank you for coming. Thank you for recognizing the value in what is delivered here. And tell a friend, because this is something that is unique and special, and we want it to continue on forever. And so welcome. I look forward to, that was a precursor to our little activity coming up here after a couple of weeks. That was a precursor. And look forward to meeting many of you and spending time together while we're here there this Saturday. Thank you so much.
He will eventually get to know all of you. Had he known you, he knew that he wasn't going to get you back as quickly as he thought he was, right? So at this time, I would, yes. Ruth, if I could have Ruth come forward to introduce our first speaker this morning.
I'm like 5'3" on a good day, so we'll just do that. So good morning. Thank you guys for all being here bright and early. My name is Ruth Swartzfager, so it's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm a student in Dr. Teeple's class. I'm a junior getting my degree in primary education. So my hope after graduation is to teach like 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, and so I'm going to be introducing to you Raul III, and a lot of his books for their illustrations and their design and how they introduce different languages are books that I would dream of using in my future classroom, so I'm excited to introduce him to you today. Raul III is an author-illustrator. He was born in Texas, and he's currently living with his family in Massachusetts. He is famous for works such as Lowriders and his Vamos series, which he's currently working on adapting into a television series, so that's exciting. He is a New York Times bestseller, and he's been awarded the Pure Braille Medal, I think 3 times now, so that's also very cool. Through his work, Raul III helps young children and Mexican-American children realize that their own experiences and culture are rich with opportunities for inspiration and creativity, and all they have to do is look around them for that. So that's also fantastic. And he did tell us this morning that he writes his notes for his speeches on his hands, but that they rubbed off. So I don't know what is about to happen, but I hope you enjoy his presentation. Please join me in welcoming Raul III. Thank you.
Hey everyone. I gotta say, whoa, I'm pretty. Oh, that's better. I can't see any of you now. All those eyeballs were freaking me out. So, the other day, actually it was last night. Specifically, it was about 8:15 p.m. We had just rounded the corner and passed the Denny's Diner right across the way. You know that one? Made out of silver. And my good buddy Keith asked me, why is your name Raul III, man? And so I thought, I'd answer that. I know some of you already heard this because you were at my presentation a couple of nights ago. But maybe you can help me. I'm Raul III because my abuelito was, that's right, Raul I. I'm Raul III because my son is, he's Esteban, but whatever, man. Just kidding, he is Raul IV. And I'm Raul III because my dad's name was, or as my abuelita used to say, 100 years ago. He would be playing out in the field a mile away, and he could still hear her scream out, "Yuño!" And then she would go, "Lava los trastes!" Nobody understands Spanish here, do you? That's okay. Anyhow, here's what I hope to do today. I'm going to set my timer because one of the things that I'm pretty good at is rambling on and on. So I just want to be able to know where I'm heading. I want to let you know a little bit about myself, how I got started. I guess I could say that this talk will be about turning points in my life that led me to where I am today, up here in Findlay, Ohio. Then perhaps, if we have time, I might do a little drawing for you. I set that up just in case my speech ran only 5 minutes and I'd figure out how to kill more time by creating a drawing. And then, if time allows, I would love to read to you from a book that hasn't even been published yet. This book doesn't come out until March of 2023. Look at that. That's a big number. Can you believe it? In my mind, it's still the year 2000. So a little context. I've been living in the Boston area for about 21 years. I remember my girlfriend at the time, Elaine Bay, now my wife. I was living in San Francisco trying to make it as an animator. I was failing miserably. So she called me one day and she was like, "Hey, Raul, I just got accepted to get my master's in Boston. Would you like to come with me?" And I said, You know what? Absolutely. I was super excited because I had 2 books in my collection. One of them was called Skibber Be by Ron Reggie Jr. The other one was called Cave In. That one was written by this guy named Brian Ralph. Anyhow, on the back of the book, I noticed that they were published in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I thought to myself, well, if anything, I could go work for them. Why not? On the way up to Boston, as we were driving, Lane didn't let me drive 1 single mile. She didn't trust me. I remember I was reading a biography about the great escape artist, Harry Houdini. You know that guy? I've always loved people who create larger-than-life personas, you know? They almost become fictional characters in their own right. Probably one of the reasons why I decided to change my name to Raul III. I wanted to be like a cartoon character. Anyhow, I remember reading his biography, and there was one sentence that really jumped out at me. It said he had performed an escape trick in the Charles River, and obviously he escaped and everything was great. But he wrote a letter to the organizers after he'd gone back to wherever he lived, and he wrote, "And in my mind, I've come to realize that all cultured roads lead to Boston." I had no idea what that meant, but I was like, hey, I'm about to go to Boston. That's awesome. Anyway, I was in my early 20s, and I was a cartoonist, and I was living in Boston, and I thought I was convinced that I had developed a technique that I was sure would catapult me to fame and fortune. I called it SPD. You guys know what that means? Can't figure it out? Come on now. Just kidding, I know you wouldn't be able to. I called it SPD, but maybe it'll catch on. It stood for Strategic Public Drawing. So basically, what I would do is I would go to a coffee shop near a place that I was convinced, near a place that was important. For instance, like a alternative newspaper or a book publisher or a gallery. And I would sit at this coffee shop and I would begin to work, here's a good example, on a drawing that was so cool and mesmerizing that I was convinced somebody would tap me on the shoulder and say something like, "Hey kid, that's a great drawing. Why don't you come work for us?" Never happened. So one day, I decided to kind of change my approach. And I remember I decided to walk into a public library. And I'm not quite sure what possessed me, but I decided to share my work with the head librarian there. And I remember she was flipping through my portfolio, and I saw her eyes grow larger and larger, and out of the blue, she asked me if I'd be interested in teaching a comic book workshop at her library, at her branch. I had never taught before, but when she said that it paid $150, I was all, count me in. I mean, I was making minimum wage at the time, so $150 for 1 hour of work, that was good. I was a little nervous, but I was also super excited because I wanted to instill in my future workshop students the same kind of excitement that I had felt years before when I had discovered illustration for the first time. Oh, by the way, this is the first time I've given this talk with visuals. So, as you can tell, that's a picture of me. I had just discovered one of my favorite art forms. You know which one what art form that is? What? What'd you say? I just hear mumbling. I had just discovered comic books. This isn't the first time I discovered illustration, but I had just discovered comic books in this particular picture. And quick aside, my mom was really kind, and she let me create that drawing right on the wall in the kitchen, because my mom knew, my mom was really kind. She knew that 2 weeks later, she'd be covering it up with brand new wallpaper. Anyhow, go back a few years, and my mom was raising me and my two brothers almost by herself, because my dad was a door-to-door salesman. He was probably out most of the time in Hatch, New Mexico, or Truth or Consequences, or Ruidoso, trying to sell siding or carpets. And one day she decided she was going to take us to this brand new place. It was called the library. And my mom took us to the library, started taking us to the library almost every single day, mainly because otherwise we would tear up the apartment. But one day, one summer, I joined a reading program. Before this time, though, before I was even ready for this reading program, libraries were important to me because I started out not speaking English, and the librarians were so helpful in introducing me to books and to the love of reading. But anyhow, years later, this became one of my reading lists. So many great books, books that I don't remember reading, like A Piece of Steak. You remember that one? I lived in Texas, so it makes sense that I would be reading a book called A Piece of Steak. One of the only books now, by the way, that isn't banned in Texas. I remember a librarian asked me, "Hey, Raul, what was your favorite part of the book you just read?" I was a little shy, so I didn't say anything. So then the librarian then said, "Hey, Raul, if you can't tell me, why don't you instead draw for me your favorite part of the book you just read?" And so that blew my mind, because as you know, when you read a book, you imagine all sorts of cool stuff. And from that point on, I would grab my ballpoint pens and I started to try to capture ideas that were forming in my mind, or I would just copy illustrations directly from books. So these are some of my drawings from when I was a kid. And I remember I was drawing all sorts of interesting things. Windows to an American, ignore that drawing. Windows to an American lifestyle that I wasn't very familiar with at that time, coming from a Mexican and Spanish-speaking household. I remember drawing images from The Great Britain Returns, like fancy tables with silverware versus, the delicious tortillas my mom would make so I could scoop up my beans and rice. Or I would draw snow-covered lawns with crazy Victorian houses that resembled haunted mansions versus the apartment complex I grew up in. But I was reading, and back in Boston, well, my workshops were a huge success, and I was teaching all over the place. That's how young I was back then. I was teaching all over the place. I was teaching in libraries, museums, after-school programs, boys and girls clubs, so on and so forth. And I remember, though, one hard winter, I started to feel really down, and I wanted to make it as an artist, but I was starting to second-guess myself, especially living in Boston. I would enter an art gallery or an art museum, and I would look up at the artwork on the walls, and there was never any kind of representation. I never saw myself or the Latinx community represented. I started to wonder why the American, why the paintings in the American wings in museums didn't represent the amazing diversity that existed within Boston and outside of Boston. And so, oy. And so I started to wonder why my students that I taught, why they never, at Boys and Girls Clubs, why they never drew characters that looked like themselves or represented who they are. And I started to wonder why my own characters didn't represent who I was and where I was from. And I remember I started thinking about my personal heroes, people like my mom and her family, and the long journey that they had taken to move up north so that they could provide a better life for themselves and their future families. And not a cute picture. And I decided that if I was going to survive in the Boston area, I was going to have to introduce myself, mi cultura, and my American experience to the Boston area. And from that point on, I never struggled for ideas. I started creating portraits of my grandpa at the Mercado, working at the Mercado. I started painting portraits of people making dangerous journeys. I started designing wrestlers who represented the desert town that I grew up in, drawing wrestlers like this guy bending the border wall over his shoulder. And I started to tell kids that they should draw themselves into their stories and design characters that look like them, because their origins and their backgrounds were incredibly important. And that led to this project, which I created as a response to the American Wing at the Museum of Fine Arts. And this exhibition opened at the Museum of Fine Arts, and it involved over 100 boys and girls, and we called the exhibition "And Their Families." And basically the kids drew themselves, they drew their families, and they brought in photographs and personal objects that represented who they were. And this is, where are those pictures? What in the world? Are they still loading? Hold on. Anyways, imagine cool pictures here, okay? What's going on? That's weird. So my friends, good night. Hold on. I'm hoping that it loads. If not, I'll have to jump to something else. Anyway, I'll go without the pictures. We'll just imagine. So the kids had created this beautiful mural. Anyway, I was creating all of this artwork, and it was all very personal work, and I was drawing comic books, and I was self-publishing them with my brand new publisher, Kinko's. And I was sending these zines out. I was sending these zines out all over the place. I would send them to artists that I admired. I would send them to editors in the hopes that they would publish me. And lo and behold, one day, I received a telephone call from a librarian way out in Portland, Oregon. Her name was Kathy Camper. And Kathy was an outreach librarian, and she was incredibly upset because none of the books that she could recommend to her students, to the kids that she served in the Latinx community, represented them in any way whatsoever. And she had read my book, which was called Cowboy Boy. And she wanted to know if I'd be interested in collaborating with her on a project. Because you see, Kathy had observed that these kids in this Latinx community were in love with this couple of books that had tons of pictures of lowriders in them. And if you don't know, lowriders are souped up cars that go low and slow, bajito y suavecito. And I said, Kathy, that sounds like an amazing idea. Send me the script. And so Kathy sends me the script, and I immediately fall in love with it. I remember I called Kathy up, and I was like, Kathy, I wish I had had this book to read when I was a kid. Perhaps my big revelation as an artist would have come a lot sooner if only I had seen myself and my family represented in a book. And so we got to work, and I drew that entire book using the exact same pens I learned how to draw with. I used Bic ballpoint pens to draw the Lowrider series. Here's one of the reasons. One, it was the material I learned how to draw with, being that there were no art supply stores in the town that I grew up in. But also because there's always a lot of walls that are built up to intimidate people, to keep them from doing great things. And sometimes you walk in a museum, you see oil paintings, and it's like, how the heck am I ever going to get that? So I wanted to use Bic ballpoint pens to show boys and girls that you don't need fancy schmancy art materials to make great art projects. Thank you for being here. It's okay, though. Don't worry about it. We're doing okay, right? All right. So we got to work. And we were so excited to. I finished about 20 pages worth of drawing, and we were super excited to begin to send it out. We knew that we were going to find our audience because, as Kathy had learned, by 2050, 2/3 of the American population would be Spanish speaking, right? And so we waited with bated breath, and suddenly we started receiving letters back from publishers. And we opened up the envelopes, and we got responses like, too marginal an audience. Or, not white, not right for our audience. And I gotta say, we were pretty bummed by all of that. But Kathy never gave up, and she kept sending out the book, and out of the blue, we received another letter. And this one came from an editor, and she wanted to publish our book. And the reason was pretty simple. It was because when this editor was a young girl, a young Korean American girl, she had always been on the lookout for books that represented her and her family. And guess what? She never found them. So when she became, oh, there's the project. Isn't that cool? Hey, you know what? Can we just fast forward to show them the Bic pen drawings? Oh, those are some of the zines that I was sending out. We'll fast forward to those. Yeah. Oh, that's Kathy Camper. Look at that. I love Kathy. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Kathy. Next image. That was the first, while she was talking to me on the phone, that's the image that I was drawing with my Bic ballpoint pen. Little knowing that it would become the drawing underneath a dust jacket in the first Lowriders in Space book. Next image. Those were the ballpoint pen drawings that we submitted to the publisher. So, yeah, so when she was a young Korean American girl, she had never found books that represented her. So when she became director of children's marketing, she decided that she would make it her life mission to make books for kids from all walks of life. And so she knew that Lowriders in Space would find its audience, not just in the Latinx community, but beyond. We could move a few images down. And so now, my friends, I get to spend 20 books later, by the way, 20 books later, I get to spend my time writing and drawing books for kids so that when they reach up to that shelf in the library, they could pull that book down, open up a page, and see themselves and their culture reflected within. So we could keep going. And so kids often ask me, we get a little spotlight over there. And this is something that I do for kids all the time. They ask me, hey, Mr. the Third, how do you create original comic book characters for the stories that you draw? And I always tell them that most of the ideas, most of the original characters that I create come from one specific source, one person who has helped inspire all of the original characters that I create. One person and the amazing people around them. So I'm about to draw a real person right here on this sheet of paper. And I want you to try and guess who it is that I'm drawing. Can you do that? Remember, this is a real person though, okay? All right, you ready? So as a cartoonist, one of my jobs is to take very complex things and to simplify them using simple shapes. You know this. I mean, Gary Larson, right? Come on. All right. So here we go. So when I draw this person, I like to start with like a bean shape. I love beans, by the way. I love pinto beans, and I love red beans because, I have red bean buns. They're so delicious. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go in, draw some eyes, like that. Any guesses? There's that. Okay. No guesses yet. Okay, that's kind of freaking me out. Who is it? What did I say? What did I say? Is Curious George a real person? Ay, ay, ay. You guys are looking at me so disappointed. All right, here we go. What? Who is that? Oh, wait. My forehead has gotten bigger as the years have gone by, but... So yeah, it's me. So I tell kids, one of the best places to begin when you're designing or writing characters is start with yourselves. And not just yourselves, but you can also use your amazing supporting cast to create characters. Who would that be? Your friends, your family, your brothers and sisters, your community leaders. And the moment you start designing characters that look like yourselves and your amazing supporting cast, you start creating a much more realistic picture of all of the amazing people that live around us. And so, for instance, I know this is going to be weird, but that used to be my dog when I was a little kid growing up. And I miss my dog, I got to say. So I decided to place him in my books. Lupe Impala in the Lowriders in Space universe, that's my abuelita and her beautiful curly black mane of hair. And so when I draw these characters, I'm thinking about my family and my friends, and my characters become so much more believable to me and to my audience. And so now, my friends, I would like to read to you. Oh, I opened up two things, but I'm going to have to come down here to open up that second one. Thank you for helping me. Tacos today, tacos tomorrow, tacos yesterday. All right. So, I've been really lucky in that I've been working on this universe now for a couple of years. This is the World of Vamos universe. And each of these books is very close and personal to me. The first book was called Vamos, Let's Go to the Market. That one is based on the marketplace that my family worked at, the Mercado Cuauhtemoc, where I spent most of my childhood playing and watching my abuelito, who barely spoke English, but knew how to sell to all of the tourists who would come down. He knew just enough English to make a great sale. And the next book was called Vamos, Let's Go Eat. It's all about my favorite food that I grew up eating. The third book was called Vamos, Let's Cross the Bridge, which is all about going back and forth from one country to the next. When I was a kid, I had no clue that I was visiting 2 countries. To me, it was just one gigantic city. To most of us who live on the border, that's what it is. We have family on both sides. We have no politics involved. It's just love and family, and we love it. Within those books, there were wrestlers, these luchadores, and we decided to spin them off into their own series. This is the 3rd book in the El Toro and Friends series. This one's called Tacos Today. I wanted to name the book Taco Tuesday, but some dude in South Dakota trademarked Tacos Tuesday, and so I couldn't use it. All right, so Tacos Today. Why is this in black and white? Hold on. Okay, yeah, good, that's good. Tacos Today. That's the title page. I'm getting even. I'm getting even with that guy. Next page. All right. Oh my goodness, we have the wrong file open. Sorry, man. Aha! Oh no, that's not it. Crap. Is this it? Oh yes, this is it. Hold on. Oh yeah. Oh, this is, I don't know why it's doing 2 at a time, but we'll take that over the other one. All right. So, the gang is getting hungry at Ricky Raton's School of Lucha. Time for lunch. Vamos a comer. The students charge out the door. Let me tell you their names. That's El Toro. That's Lizarda. When I was a kid, I used to love the jackalope. Who here doesn't love a jackalope? So that guy right there, his name is Jack A. Lopez. That's Croak. That's La Oink Oink. And that right up there, that's an armadillo. His name is Armadillo. Tengan cuidado. Be careful. Outside, El Toro and his friends gather around. What should we eat today? That's right. Every day is taco day for you. Tacos today, tacos tomorrow, tacos on Tuesday. Can we go up a little bit? Tacos are the best. You have a tortilla and whatever kind of filling and salsa you want. Everyone has a favorite. I want fish tacos. Me gustan los de lengua. You like tongue tacos? That's a food that can taste you back, man. I like this little bit of graffiti in the background. No tenedores allowed. No forks allowed. You ever see anybody eating a taco with a fork? Yeesh. Stay away from that person. All right, go down a little bit. Yo quiero breakfast tacos. Breakfast served all day, every day. I like tacos de nopal, cactus tacos. Y yo quiero Korean tacos. Hey, let's thank Chef Roy Joy for introducing us to Korean tacos, because if you're ever in LA, run and grab yourself one. They're delicious. El Toro and his friends empty their pockets and count how much money they have. Oh man, just a bunch of pennies and moscas and a Band-Aid. No me digas, don't tell me. We're never going to eat. Me rechina el estómago. Tengo hambre también. My stomach is growling. I'm hungry too. We are doomed. We are not doomed. What did I forget? My editor, man, look at that. Little red circles. I did something wrong there. Who knows what it was? We are an amazing team. We are luchadores. We can do anything. First, let's go to where the tacos are. We can use our pesetas to catch the bus to Taco Square. Is there a Taco Square here? Oh man, you're missing out. There's the bus stop. And in Juarez, by the way, I loved riding the bus in Juarez. You know, most cities, they have a bus line, and it's owned by one company. In Juarez, if you could get your hands on a bus, you could open up your own bus line. And so there's all sorts of competing buses. But what gets you in the bus is how it's decorated. And that makes it so much fun. So this right here, orale, hooray, it's the party bus. Inside the bus, all the passengers dance in their seats. Armadillo busts a move, and Lezarda steps to the beat. Oh, check this guy out. This little chicken right here. His t-shirt says, Future Taco. The crowd loves them. The pasajeros shower them with monedas. That's it. We can use our skills to make dinero for tacos. And there's Taco Square. Look at that. At last, they arrive at Taco Square. One of my favorite taco stands right here. It says, Taco Warp. Let's eat a taco today. Where's that from? Yeah, that's right, Rocky Horror. El Toro and friends walk to the center of La Plaza. Follow my lead, luchadores. Atención! Huh? What you are about to witness has never been seen outside El Coliseo. Today, you will see los estudiantes de Ricky Raton in action. Go for it. Let's see. Vamos a ver. Armadillo sounds the bell, and los luchadores take action. He sounds the bell at my favorite taco spot, Sapo Bell. El Toro charges. Lezarda swings from El Fuente. Armadillo dribbles Croak. Jackie Lopez dodges la oink oinks, kicks. Taco tank. More people come to watch. Everyone cheers and applauds. Look at that taco shop. It's called My Neighbor Taquero. You know that one? You got it. Thank you very much. We hope that you have enjoyed the show. Dinero rains down on los luchadores. Gracias. Los queremos mucho. Thank you. We love you. Oh, by the way, if you look carefully at the money, they're getting paid in taco bucks. Isn't it cool when you discover that your skills can pay for your meals? Oh, I was so happy when that happened. I love being a wrestler. We did it. We have money for tacos for everyone. El Toro and friends can't believe their success. The taco sellers surround the team. Thank you for your amazing performance. You brought us even more customers. Please come back and do it again. Your tacos are free today. Look at that. Pescado, huevos, nopal, muchas moscas. Tongue taco. Have you guys ever had one of those? Bird seed. And then the last page. Those niños sure are taking a long lunch. They're growing kids, Ricky. And I think that's it for me, my friends. Oh, I have time for questions. That was only 34 minutes. What the heck? I've been up here forever. Ay, ay, ay. Anyone have a question for me? Yes, you back there.
So while you're working, do you listen to any types of music while you're working?
Oh, my friend. I listen to so much music. Everything from classic rock to cumbias to rancheritas to early 80s electronica, all sorts of cool stuff. I'm always tuned in. I also listen to books on tape, watch documentaries, all sorts of fun stuff. Except for when I'm writing. Then I have to be in silence, and that's always the most miserable time.
Any other questions?
Let him ask one first, and then we'll get to you.
So I guess mine is kind of a double-loaded question. Last night I talked to you about, we talked about Gary Baseman and stuff like that. So I was wondering
yes.
Any other cartoonists or artistic influences, and then also, I guess, if you prefer luchador wrestling or American professional wrestling.
Well, I grew up watching luchador wrestling, so I prefer that. Also, I just love that. I love the audience. I love how inexpensive it is. I love how it's for the general public. I love how anybody is invited. And so I prefer that to the big spectacle of American wrestling, even though there's been some incredible wrestlers introduced to us since I was a kid, But as for the artistic influences, yeah, Gary Baseman was a huge influence on me since I was a kid, but so was early comic book artists like Jim Aparo, Norm Breyfogle, and so were early American cartoons. For instance, one of my favorites was Los Picapiedras, and I used to copy drawings from Los Picapiedras, and I didn't realize that. I didn't realize until later when I started watching that same cartoon here in the United States that I was actually watching the Flintstones. So, yeah. Oh, you had a question?
Yeah. You're talking about writing, so do you like write the thing and then go back and illustrate it? I mean, it looks so integrated.
Yeah, so I write the scripts first, but you know, I'll draw, oh, it's my mom. I'll draw like, yeah, so like it might start with like an idea for a drawing, you know, or, but then I'll go back and write the script, and then once my editor approves that, then I could go in and start drawing it. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Yes.
Do you work totally digitally, or do you sketch things out on paper first?
Oh, so you know, I drew the El Toro and Friends book. All three that have come. All four? Is it four now? Yeah, all four. I drew them all during the pandemic, and I didn't have everything closed down. But you know what happens when you're an artist is you stock up on sketchbooks, and you pretty much know that you're never going to use them. I mean, it's just like you just buy them, and then they just sit in your corner. But now, I was forced to use them, and I had these oversized moleskin sketchbooks. They're about this big. And so I drew all four books in two of those moleskin sketchbooks. And then I scanned them in, and remember that my girlfriend, Elaine, well, she is now the colorist on this series. And so I scan them in, and I send them to her, and she colors each and every page. And she uses a combination of photographs that she's taken. She has collected a huge library of stained papers and textures, and then she uses Photoshop. So it's a combination of those three things. And we started working together for the first time when I was working for SpongeBob SquarePants. So, yeah. Yes?
How long does the process of making a book like this, from the first idea to out on the shelves?
Oh man, so I'm kind of fast. So I wrote the book over a weekend. All three books, it took me like a day to write each book. So I was done with 4 books in like 4 days. But then drawing them, I probably take like a month to just draw each book. So about a month. Yeah. But long hours. I don't stand up all that often.
Other questions?
What's your favorite type of taco?
I really do like tacos de lengua con salsa de árbol, so chile de árbol, so that's my favorite. And I love them with cilantro y cebollas, and I love them with my mom's homemade tortillas, so that's my favorite. Yeah.
So
Hey, it's you again!
Yeah, I have a follow-up
heck?
question. So I guess in terms of like comic book influences, I was curious if you knew like the Love and Rockets books by the Los Hernandez.
You can't be like a Latinx cartoonist, Latino cartoonist without knowing Jaime and Gilberto. They are quite possibly one of the most important cartoonists, 2 of the most important cartoonists working in the States today. But for us who grew up never seeing ourselves represented in comic books, immediately you knew that they were drawing books about who you were or are, you know? Everything from Speedy to Hopi, it's just so influential, and I love them more than anything. Yeah.
Got one more over here for you.
Okay.
This is actually 2 questions.
Yeah?
One, what was your favorite comic book character?
My favorite comic book character? I don't know. I'm just gonna say Kamandi, the last boy on Earth right now.
And then the other one was, are you enjoying, like, especially with the internet, there's been a lot more comics made that are very diverse, and
Yeah.
you can find like a lot more diversity in them.
I think it's one of the things that I love is how many more people are creating comic books, and also how many different approaches people are taking to creating comic books. Used to be just like a pencil and ink game. Now there's so many cool approaches. There's so many different characters, different backgrounds, different creators from different backgrounds making comic books, and it's all wonderful. So I'm really happy about that. I think nowadays, especially you look at graphic novels that are specifically geared for kids, there's so many of them, where when I was a kid, there weren't any. And I think that's a wonderful thing because as I showed you that comic book drawing from when I was a kid, comic books are a very accessible art form. And for a lot of kids, there are no such thing as museums or galleries. And so graphic novels, picture books, those are the first introduction to art that a kid is going to get. And if they're visually inclined, they can really learn a lot about how they want to express themselves when it comes to drawing or writing. So it's cool.
Any other questions?
So the other day, I actually read one of your books, Lowrider's Blast from the Past, and throughout reading that one, like I read Training Day, I believe that's what it was, with El Toro.
Yeah.
And I noticed that in Training Day, there's not really a use of panels, and instead it's more of just your classic picture book. But with Lowrider's Blast from the Past, you use more of the comic book approach with paneling and double-page spreads. And I'm just wondering, like, what inspires you to make some of your books more like traditional comics, and which ones more like just normal picture books?
Yeah, so the El Toro and Friends books, these books, they're what you call early readers. And so these are some of the first books that kids are going to read on their own. So I want to make them as simple as I possibly can. Short sentences, easy to read pictures. Whereas the Lowrider series is meant for an older audience, and it is a graphic novel, and so there is a more traditional approach to how I create the artwork. Yeah, that's it. That's basically it. The different kind of format.
Other questions? This morning in the van, you mentioned when you kind of hit a block and a need to refocus. What do you do?
I like to take a nap.
Yeah, and Keith Henry Brown was sitting next to me, and he said, well, when I do that, I wake up 9 hours later, groggy, and it doesn't help me at all like it helps Raul.
Yeah, I take 20-minute naps, so it's good. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And I apologize for the disjointedness of the speech because of the, whatever happened.
So, you may be Raul III on your books, but you're first Raul with us. So, thank you. We appreciate the work that you do and the outreach that it needs to take to meet the kids in our communities all across the country. So, thank you.